According to the reports, it seems your skill at handling a gun is quite impressive. Where did you learn how to handle a gun?
That was sick!
Man, you destroyed the old score!
That has gotta be the highest score you can get.
Yeah, you can't beat this game the way they program it. It's impossible!
Someday, you're gonna beat that game.
The Vulcan is the coolest weapon!
Yeah, I wish I could shoot a real one.
Nerf N-Strike Elite, a series of Nerf blasters with a color scheme of blue, orange, white, and black that is a successor to the N-Strike series that was released in 2012, and is still releasing today, though the color scheme isn't the same anymore. These were to be a more tactical series of dart blasters with various customization options, and unlike the previous series which only reached 35 feet, the N-Strike Elite was able to reach ranges of 75 to 90 feet? Wow, that is a major improvement, okay. And there's also a Nerf N-Strike Elite game, which actually doesn't have a single thing to do with the blasters, even with making its own version of the Switch Shot EX3 that included a red reveal specifically used for this game. Yeah, this game came out a year after the Nerf N-Strike game, which was 2 years before their Elite blasters even released. Due to that, it may be possible that the blasters were named after this game, not sure. But regardless, I'm not sure if that was the best route to go with, because this game is a sequel to one of the worst games I've reviewed so far. But sequels can improve on the first game, sometimes. So yeah, my expectations aren't too great because of that. But today, I'm going to be looking at the Nerf N-Strike Elite video game and just hope that this is one of those cases. Also, I'll be using the Switch Shot EX3 again for this, not like anyone can see that though. Bob has returned, and Jackal has hacked into the old Elite training facility, leading them to a secret compound. Bob is planning something even bigger than last time, and Jackal is currently being held down by robots, which is why he got the old gang, Shane, Komodo, Raven, and Tango back together to help deal with it. They end up going throughout the compound destroying robots, while Jackal hacks into certain things to make things easier and stop Bob's plan. This is actually a pretty decent setup. The characters are also way better now instead of being generically edgy middle school teens. I remember saying in the last video that if they were on the same side the entire time, they'd be better, and it looks like that statement stands true. Sadly, there isn't any dialogue that relates to the character backgrounds that were given in the previous game, so their backgrounds mean even less now. Fun. As a whole, this story is better. Until the last 30 minutes of the game where everything falls flat. Right after you take care of the security, the gang loses connection to Jackal and barely survives an aircraft crash. They then set off to find Jackal, assuming the robots got to him, but once they find him, he reveals that everything he's had the gang do up until this point was to help him obtain the facility, so now he has control over all of the robots, including Bob. In that facility is also a rocket, which he is filling with robots and is going to send into the heart of town so that he can take control of it. The gang is able to temporarily stop him, but Jackal has a contingency plan, sending more robots to defeat them. However, Komodo takes control of the rocket and it blasts off. What happens next?
Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Where are you going?
It's another cliffhanger after the last game ended off with a cliffhanger. But unlike the last game, this one doesn't have a sequel to follow up on some really important questions. For instance, why did Jackal even do this? It is never explained, so he pretty much betrayed us for no reason. Another example, what happens after this? Because the plan wasn't foiled and we didn't lose. This is the exact reason why I don't like cliffhangers in stories. Unless you are Disney or one of their subgroups, you cannot leave off stories as cliffhangers and expect to get away with it by just releasing another installment. I'm surprised a second game even happened in the first place given how bad the first one was. The story should have ended here, but no. Instead, we get no satisfaction for any of this because they wanted to make another game, but there is no next game. So this game basically has no conclusion. Great. The most notable change between this game and the previous one is that there is no comic art style, which is honestly kinda sad. It was the one thing I actually liked from the first game, and it doesn't return. I can imagine it would look pretty good here too. In place of that, we have 3D models, which are alright. They get the job done, but it's definitely not as good as the comic style from before. Thankfully, something I can give praise for over the other game is the environment. Last time you were holed up in a facility where almost everything looked the same with nowhere near enough differences. But this time there's a mix of being outside in some canyon as well as inside the facility with fairly different set pieces that you move through. The music is pretty good and has more of a cinematic feel to it. Personally, it's better than the last game, but it's not available on YouTube. However, in the manual there is a website that lets you listen to the game's music, and it's shut down. Cool. I shouldn't be surprised that the website shut down, but it's really annoying every time a game's OST is not available online. Anyways, something that is very nice is the writing. It is 10 times better than before. The edginess has been toned down immensely, aside from Jackal. He hasn't grown out of his edgy teenage years, it seems. It's more friendly banter that I can realistically see a group of friends having rather than trying to roast each other as if they were in middle school.
Man, I hate these things.
Elevators. Why?
Don't know. They just make me nervous.
You're totally unfazed by the hundreds of darts whizzing by you or the dozens of freaky metal monsters, but the elevator makes you nervous?
Oh, and a little queasy.
Oh, dude, you better not hurl in here.
On top of that, you actually get to see them doing things, and the characters you see change depending on which character you are, which is again another thing I mentioned in the first game. And finally, the voice work. Honestly, it does have its sour moments, but most of the voice acting is solid enough. And I actually decided to watch the credits to see the voice actors since I didn't do that last time, and there's a fair amount of work they've done that I'm not familiar with, but about half of them apparently have ties to Final Fantasy, and one of them is also Joshua from The World Ends With You. Having that information in my head is going to haunt me for the rest of my life, and I hate that. Before each level of the game, you and/or someone you're playing with will choose to play as Shane, Tango, Komodo, or Raven, who each carry up to 4 blasters. Once you've entered a level, you'll automatically proceed through areas as you take out robots with your Nerf Blasters. There are also canisters scattered around which can be collected by shooting them. These canisters can be put towards purchasing blasters, upgrades, and cosmetics for said blasters, all of which are bought during character selection. When running low on health or ammo, you'll occasionally run across floating objects which you can shoot to obtain more of them. Various areas have hidden secrets, and to reveal them, you have to utilize the red reveal. Using this exposes certain spots that are used to open areas, attack weak points, and show special code messages. Some routes can only be accessed with 2 players, who must work together to open them, mostly through shooting their own targets or alternating between a single target. Lastly, there is a blasting range, where you choose a blaster and try to get as many points as you can before time runs out. There's not much else to say about the gameplay actually. I think this is the least I've ever talked about a game's gameplay. It feels very weird. The 4 different characters each have their own diverse loadouts and unlockable guns, which is great for multiple reasons. It shows off their specialties such as massive explosive damage or targeting a specific enemy. Plus, it affects gameplay given unique experiences with every playthrough of a level or the entire game, whether you play as the same character the entire game or switch between characters as you progress. There are a few levels where everyone uses the same gun regardless, but for the most part you'll be using separate arsenals. Every gun you get for a character can be used alongside the default one, and it's really good that that's a thing because the default guns mostly suck compared to the unlockable ones. Now that does sound bad at first, but the default guns have unlimited ammo, so them being weak makes sense. Whereas the unlockable guns are stronger but have a limited ammo supply, so you might have to ration using those guns for specific enemies to encourage switching between them. And it also reinforces aim, as again, those shots are limited. The customization is actually pretty cool. All of the guns in the first game looked very samey with no way of changing them as far as I'm aware. This game, however, has a large variety of colors that can be used for every gun, as well as a couple of reticles so that you can give each and every gun their own personality. The changes aren't only on an aesthetic level. All of the upgrades make a huge difference gameplay-wise since they increase the damage, fire rate, and reload rate, making it easier to defeat enemies. And the game's main gimmick, being the red reveal, is actually implemented in a really cool way. The red reveal helps to gain an advantage in battle by revealing weak points for enemies that have them to make taking them down a lot easier, as well as reveal canisters that you can collect for upgrades and cosmetics later on. One of the best uses is whenever you're in front of these little computer screens and they show off a gun. Each of these has a code, and if you're able to decipher said code using the red reveal, you can get these guns for free, allowing you to use your canisters on upgrades, and trust me, these guns are expensive, so it's very nice to use it. On top of that, if you end up using a code to unlock a gun that you've already purchased, then you get paid back in canisters which you can use for the accessories and buffs for guns. That's really awesome because using that code later on could actually just make it be nothing, but instead, it rewards you for still using the code anyways. Despite your allies being with you within levels, they don't feel like they actually contribute to clearing out enemies most of the time. They're animated to make you think they're doing something, but they usually just shoot in the same few spots, and that's assuming that their bullets actually appear on screen at all. They don't try to adjust their aim to most enemies, meaning if they do hit something, it's completely on accident as an enemy just so happens to fly into their line of fire. At this point, the others being around you only serves for comedic dialogue, which even then technically isn't needed as they all have communicators, so even that is a stretch. And I know in my last video I said that I'd much rather them being on our side, and it works mostly story-wise, but what's the point gameplay-wise if they hardly affect the game in a meaningful way? Going back to the red reveal, there's one awkward thing about it. In the very first moment of the game, you're supposed to use it to solve this puzzle. The only problem was I didn't have the red reveal. They were sold with the copies of the game when it was released. In case it's not obvious, it's 2021 and not 2009, so I couldn't get a newly released version. But again, it's 2021 and not 2009, so thanks to the power of modern internet, I found out that for anything that involves the red reveal, if the color is red, yellow, or white, that's what you need to shoot. And sometimes another color, but that's only in the blasting range. So knowing that, I was able to get through the entire game without it. You don't need it for the weak points, you don't need it for the puzzles, you don't need the red reveal for any of the benefits that it brings. It's just a piece of plastic. Knowing that kinda takes away the magic of it, but it's still really useful. That and I literally wouldn't be able to review this game without this information if I did need it, so I'm grateful as awkward as it is knowing this. Now, you aren't able to move around on your own similar to the last game, but it doesn't feel like you'll be screwed over in the positions you're in. Plus, the game will occasionally move you out of the way on its own for you, which is a step up from the first game when you literally just didn't move out of the way ever. Oh, and the blasting range. It's a tad bit boring of a minigame. I played only 15 minutes of it and got bored of it fast. It's actually very similar to the first game, which now saying all that out loud makes a lot of sense, but here it's just a minigame rather than the entirety of the game, so it's not as bad. I'll be honest, I'm very surprised about the difference between this game and the previous one. The first one is actually one of my least favorite games that I've reviewed, and the second one took a fair amount of complaints that I had and fixed a lot of them entirely. Unfortunately, there are a few amount of other issues with this game as well, mainly being the story and how the lack of a sequel outright obliterates it, and graphically it could use a bit of work, but it's definitely better than the first one, especially gameplay wise. Which is surprising because, again, this game came out a year after the first one, which is not a lot of time for game development. Honestly, if a third game was given a chance, that probably would have been the best and final Nerf game. The story would have to end at that point. I'm seriously tired of cliffhangers. What's going on, my fellow residents? It's me, TheFrozenCavern, and thank you guys for making it to the end of this video. Now I finally have Nerf games out of the way, which is kind of a shame because I do hold that last statement to be true. If a third game actually did come out, it probably would be really good, but unfortunately, that's never going to happen. But yeah, now I don't have any more Nerf games to look at. Not that that's necessarily even bad, because now I have time to focus on other reviews. But this one was more of a personal one that I wanted to do because the first game I played a decent amount of my childhood, and it only felt right to cover the second game as well, since I had never played that one. But other than that, I don't really have much to talk about when it comes to this game. I just played it for my childhood's culture, and now I'm moving on. So if you have not already, make sure you guys go down to the description below because that's where all of my social medias are located. My Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Discord are all in the description, and they are all ways for you guys to be notified of whenever I make another video or have an update for the channel. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more, and share this video out with your friends and family. But until the next video, take care.